Hello and welcome to the Afree Dominion. Thank you so very much for joining the program today. My name is Freeman Singirankabo, and it is a pleasure for me to give you a huge welcome to our platform today as we discuss our conversation here on Friday. Those of you joining us live, especially if you're joining us live from the social media, the likes of the Facebook, YouTube, and some of the private platforms that we are pushing our segment to. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come and have a saying in this conversation. As always, and make sure that you come and make yourself comfortable. That goes the same for those of you joining us live from the television networks as well as radio station. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so happy and so excited that you can find some time out of your busy schedule to join our conversation today. As always, guys, those of you who have been following our programs today, anytime we are here, we're on air, we're broadcasting, we're talking to you guys, we speak to each and every one of you truthfully, boldly, and with no apologies. Why? Because the content that we provide, the content that we discuss, the issues that we get down to it are the issues of which we care very deeply about. These are the issues we barely speak about or that have been unspoken for such a long time. And this is our season. This is our time for us to talk about it. And it is also in this, for these reasons that everything we discuss with you guys, we discuss it in the spirit of truth, love, and trust. And these are the benchmarks by which we will help each and every one of you to measure both the validity and the integrity of the content that we actually get to share with you. By all means, we welcome all your feedbacks. Make sure that you give us some feedbacks based on what you see, what you hear, what you like, what you do not like, what you find to be truthful or even inaccurate or erroneous. We'd love to make sure that everything that we get to discuss, everything that we get to share with you guys on this platform, it's truth and nothing but the truth. And with that in mind, also, we welcome all your feedbacks. No matter what kind of feedbacks that you have, we're not afraid of you. We welcome you. We welcome you. The only one thing that we require or request of each and every one of you is that we all get to respect one another. Given that we have different opinions about so many things that are going on in our lives, it is imperative, it is important that whatever we discuss here, it is literally of a respect to each and every one of us. That is the only one thing that we require of you. And those of you who actually love to participate to our conversation on the daily basis, how do you get in touch with us? Obviously, can I join the conversation if you don't know how to get in touch with us? Let me start by saying that we have our social media platforms open. If you want to join us live and have a saying in there, go through those channels. We also have our studio. You can actually uplink to us directly from our studio using our Zoom. If you get to the websites, to any of the social media that we have, you will have a link that actually helps you to actually tune in and join in the conversation in real time. How else do you get in touch with us? We have our website, and the website is www.afreedominion.com. www.afreedominion.com. From there, you can actually find out our contact information, how to get in touch with us, either from text messages, email, phone numbers, whatever, even the social media handlers. However you can easily be able to find us, get in touch with us, we have that information. We do not hide. So whatever it is that we say, whatever it is that we discuss with each and every one of you, we do it in the open. Why? We are so confident that what we are sharing, what we are contributing to our brothers and sisters, it's of importance, and there's no reason why we should hide. That also gives you an invitation to correct us in case we have something that is inaccurate. We absolutely want to make sure that what we share has added value to you, to your community, and even your nation. And if that goal is not achieved, it is both your responsibilities and every one of you who actually follows the conversation to actually in turn give us some feedback, so we make sure that we set ourselves correct. Also, I forgot to mention that you can also reach to us via email, info@afreedominion.com. We are technical generation. We are techies. So it is easier for us to get back at you using like social media handlers, email, text messages than you giving us a call directly. We might be doing other things, and if we don't get in touch with you right then and there, do not be discouraged. Either way, we're doing it all this for our own people, so we have to respond one way or the other. And with that in mind, also, I want to bring it to your attention that everything we do here, guys, we do it intentionally. There is nothing that is a fluke of what we're doing here. This entire program has been put together for years, and now we finally got the opportunity to actually bring it to your neighborhood, bring it to your living room, and for you to participate in it. So, and because of that reason, I also acknowledge that some of you, or most of you, may not be aware of what it is that we're doing here. And because of those reasons, I want to make sure that I always just give you a small brief intro as to what it is we're doing here. What is Afree Dominion? What is Afree Dominion Show? So Afree Dominion, it's an idea that inspires, advocates, encourages, and help you take the full dominion of Africa and African affairs. Your own homeland, take a full dominion of it. One nation at a time, by sons, daughters, and African descendants, all in the interest of Africa and African people primarily, and the rest of the world afterwards. So the Afree Dominion Show, it's a mouthpiece of the idea. It's a program of which passes on programs. So programs, different interaction, different communication, different means of getting in touch with each and every one of you, wherever it is you may be, in a such way that this program also must and should always be inspiring, advocating. Because most of our brothers and sisters are literally voiceless. So we want to make sure that we advocate for the voiceless brothers and sisters. We also want to make sure that we actually get in a position where we can encourage you personally and corporately. Make sure that wherever it is that we can actually mitigate or meet some of the needs, we can do it right then and there. But above all, get right to action. Help you in real time, help you take action together, not just us pushing it to you, but us working with you. We do this every day, every single day. And because of that, that's why I say that this is intentionally done. And anything that we are intentionally doing, so many pieces are moving all at once. Various information is passed around. Activities taking place left and right, up and down. You name it. So many things are happening. Bottom line, it is us doing it for ourselves first and foremost. We are taking charge of our own affairs. We are becoming responsible and accountable for our own affairs, first and foremost, before we ask any help, before we seek out any help, any handout from nobody. We want to do it ourselves first and foremost. And with that in mind, we welcome each and every one of you sons and daughters to actually have the front seat in everything that we do. Make sure that you participate, make sure that you are informed. And also bring some information that are going to be helpful to each and every one of us. Whatever it is you cannot do for yourself, do not assume that a foreigner or someone else is going to do it for you. All of us, we are all responsible for ourselves first and foremost. Everybody else comes afterwards. This is just the way the world is run, guys. There's no shame in it. None whatsoever. And with that in mind, I also want to make sure that I addressed something that is asked of me all the time. They always ask me, so how come how come this program is strictly for you Africans? Don't we all exist? Are you trying to discriminate? And I always respond in this way. No, we are not discriminating at all. Take any one of the nations that you may pick, any one of the nations. The affairs of that nation focuses on its own people first and foremost. Its primary focus is its own people. That doesn't mean that that nation is discriminating. However, if you find it discriminatory, or if you find any discriminatory practices, then you must be able to bring it forward. But our goal here is to make sure that before we can pretend to want to help anybody else, we got to help ourselves. And the last time we checked, African House is on fire. It's been mostly dysfunctional for so long. It's been on a lockdown by someone else, by stakeholders who are not Africans or who are not looking for the best interest of Africa and African people first and foremost. So we want to change the course. We want to make sure that we change that. We're boldly saying it because that's what we believe in. And while that's the case, we also acknowledge that those who have been enslaving Africa, those who are turning the agenda away from Africa, those who are taking away the resources and in ensuring that Africa stays behind, are working very tirelessly to make sure that we stay in that predicament. And guess what? We have a choice to stay in that predicament or change the course, and we have chosen to change the course. The same way all these nations also are responsible for every activity, everything that happens, that takes place in their own countries every single day. Why should it be any different with us? There shouldn't be any difference between what we do and what you all do when it comes to looking after your best interest. So therefore, we're not discriminating. We are just ensuring that we get to be the beneficiaries of whatever it is we do first and foremost, the same way you do it also. We're together. So with that in mind also, this program, everything that we discuss with you guys, we have broken it down into many themes, because we have the privilege of getting to broadcast a signal or to come in touch with you guys from Monday through Friday. So every single one of the days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and Friday, we make sure that the themes have different programs. These programs then can represent your issues, your desires, whatever it is you want to bring forward. Then we can actually channel them through these themes. And with that in mind, on Mondays, what kind of theme we have? We talk about the eradication of African refugees and stateless persons. We make sure that we get to talk about our brothers and sisters who are refugees and stateless person. Why should you be a homeless when you have a home? Why should you be on the street when you have a root, somewhere you belong? Why is it that you can't be there? That root cause, we want to make sure that we scrutinize, we study it, and we eradicate it. We get rid of it, despite where it comes from. On Tuesdays, we get to talk about the African Constitution, law and policy reviews and implementations. Africa, as you may have known, and if you don't know, get to know it today, has one of the most beautifully written constitutions. Nations have the most amazing constitutions, but these constitutions barely seek the interests of their own people, or its own people first and foremost. It's like it's written for someone else, for another kind of audience. So we want to make sure that we also get to scrutinize the constitutions, these local laws and policies, and ensure that they are actually advocating us and our own people. They're advocating on behalf of all of you voiceless. And if not, we scrap them, or we encourage you to scrap them. We encourage you to get rid of them, and then put on something else that actually has us in our own, has us as a primary interest beneficiaries. That's what we're doing, and we're doing it openly without having to sugarcoat it, because there's no point in sugarcoating it. Africa has been enslaved for centuries, guys. Physically enslaved, mentally enslaved, spiritually enslaved. And in 2020, we, sons and daughters and descendants of Africa, want to make sure that at least we get to start a change in direction. And if you don't do it yourselves, nobody else is going to do it. Real talk. On Thursdays, we get to talk about the spirit of dominion. What is dominion? Dominion entails govern, you can govern, you can rule, you can manage, You can protect your own resources, the things that you care most about. So the Dominion of Africa entails governing, ruling, protecting, making African better, making African resource better. Be the best manager of your own resources. Look after your first interest before anybody else, because you are the primary beneficiaries. So there's no reason why someone else should benefit from your own inheritance before you come first. Like in the United States, for example, that's where I am right now. A Russian cannot benefit from your own benefit, your own benefit first and foremost. A Chinese person cannot come here and benefit first and foremost before you benefit, you citizens of the United States. That goes the same way to each and every one of us. If you're not allowing that to happen in your own house, do not expect that it's going to happen in my house. Unless you still claim to have rulership over me, unless you still invalidate my freedom, my independence, my self-governance. Which is why we are reviewing and we are getting rid of some of these establishments, because they are literally facade. You claim to be independent, yet someone else is calling the shots. Someone else is telling you what to do from the very beginning to the end. And that is a no-no, guys. On Fridays, we get to talk about the current events and its impact towards Africa and African people. Again, we are literally focusing on sons and daughters, kings and queens of Africa. First and foremost, everybody else, we still love y'all, but you are not the primary focus here. And don't be offended. That's just the way it is. When it comes to you, we also come for you. We also come and be with you and support you. But we also recognize that we also have to support ourselves and be not ashamed of it at all. And that's one thing I really want to encourage each and every one of you sons and daughters. Do not be ashamed. Do not be ashamed of yourselves. Do not be ashamed of taking stands on behalf of your own people. It's necessary. Everybody else around the globe does it. Why should it be any difference? Why should there be any difference to you? Why should it be any different to you? And with that in mind, guys, we come boldly, we come truthfully, and we come with the intent of adding value to our brothers and sisters all over the world. But starting from our own brothers and sisters. That's what we got going on here. If you see anything different from that, call us out openly. We even make sure that you can call us out publicly. I mean, it can't get any better than that. So with that in mind, let's jump right into the conversation for today. Today I got an interesting topic, terrorism in Africa. And we said here, my people are destroyed from lack of knowledge because they have rejected it. These are not my words. I actually borrowed them from the Bible, which is something that is so, you can see it today in everything that we do. So we have what they're calling terrorism in Africa. But our brothers and sisters are they are very ignorant about it. They are asleep about it. They're not bothering, or they are not bothered by it. And that made me wonder, can you solve a situation in your own house without your presence or attention? How can you actually solve a problem that you don't have any knowledge over? Is that really possible, guys? Is that really possible? So there's something they call Aqaba Process meetings on counterterrorism. And specifically this year, they're focusing on East African community or East African nations. However, the irony, the East African nations are not represented officially. You may be wondering, what am I talking about? So I want to ask that the tech is actually share with us, share with you guys what is East Africa, what is East African community to begin with. That way you can have an idea what it is. A meeting just took place in Jordan, in Jordan, where another nation, another country, another group of people are deciding on the fate of East African nations when it comes to terrorism and counterterrorism. Which is why I asked you, how is it that somebody else is going to come in and talk about your business when you're not there? I found that so bizarre, but it's not really bizarre though, guys. It's planned. And this is where your sons and daughters, I actually got a beef with y'all. Can you actually sit down and talk about the United States business without the United States representative in the meeting? Can you sit down and talk about French business without the French representative in that meeting? Can you talk about Russia, China business without their representatives in that same meeting? The answer is hell no. However, for those of you who do not know, this has been the trend for the continent of Africa since 1895. You have Europe, you have the North America, South America, Asia, Australian, the rest of the continent. Since 1895, they had the audacity to get together and decide to colonize Africa and decided to actually rule Africa in any way they saw fit. Again, guys, let me also put it out here. We always get chopped off from a lot of networks when we discuss of these issues, as if this is a taboo, as if this is something that is that you cannot discuss, you cannot talk about. In case we get disconnected, I want to just put it out there. First and foremost, I want you to see discrimination up in the open. First and foremost, there is an issue going on. However, it is only acceptable when it's presented or when it's discussed by those who have been given permission. We seek no permission from any of these nations to discuss the issues that affect our lives. As sons and daughters, kings and queens of Africa. We seek nobody's permission. However, we have been taught for centuries that you must seek a permission from a master of anything related to your affairs. Africans, we have been found to be slaves, nothing else except being slaves to the rest of the entire world. But it was not the case thousands for millennia and millennia ago. It was not the case. There was a time when Africa was the mother, and it still is, of the entire planet. When Africa was the brain power of everything around the globe. When Africa was providing the way forward. Because Africa was trusted with our wisdom, was trusted with that information. The sad thing is, as some of these nations came around, they took over, they decided to take what was not originally their own responsibility. Consequently, Africans were, first and foremost, they took the knowledge and then got rid of the people who possessed the knowledge. What do I mean by got rid of them? They were executed, they were killed. Facts. Check it out. Now, when we talk about this openly, some of these nations feel offended that we're actually openly talking about it. Guys, this is 2022. If you say we are free nations, you are a sovereign nation. You can have the saying, you can have the decision of your own fate. If you're advocating that publicly and openly. Yet behind the curtain, you go behind and you say, hell no, we actually did not mean that. We wanted you to feel good about yourselves, but we actually know better what's good for you. This is what we'd like for you to do. Never mind what you got planned for yourself. This is what we want you to do. This is what we are strongly suggesting that you do. Because going astray from this thing, from this plan that we had for you, would actually have some ramifications. This is the world that we live in today, guys. Especially you guys, you sons and daughters, you young people. Get to know that there's a huge difference of the reality that you live in and what is prescribed in documentations, what is sold around every single day. We live two parallel worlds, two parallel lives. The actual life and the Kool-Aid life, I can call it, for the lack of a better word. So today we want to face our world, we want to face our lives as is, not as it is being prescribed to us, not in the way that is contrary to what we are living. And that is why I'm strongly saying to you guys, check it out. Some discussions are a no-no to have them by us, sons and daughters, African descendants. Why? Because there is always another third party that wants to take the lead in that conversation, that wants to have the last word, that wants to have a last decision as to where you must go. Are we slaves? Are we you slaves that you have to make decision for us? We have a brain of 500 plus million cells in it that perfectly function. Why is it that we cannot use our own brain to decide for our own selves, to decide for our own fate without your interference? If you do not allow us to interfere in your own affairs, how dare that you come forward and interfere in our own affairs? And you make it a point to do it by force also. And it is why we like to say that even though that knowledge has been stolen and taken away from Africa, there is one thing of stealing that which is not yours. And there is another thing having unlimited source of it. Guys, the knowledge of the leadership of the planet, it's genetically inside of us. And this is not to claim superiority, none of that. It is like the knowledge of giving birth of a woman. It's genetically built inside of her. It's like the knowledge of breathing on your own. It's genetically built inside of you. Nobody can take away the breathing mechanism from you, or give you a license to breathe today just because you're coming from this way, this region or that region or that region. Nobody can police, even though they are attempting to. They have been attempting to for generation to generation. They're using pills to keep you from giving birth, to determine when you can and cannot give birth. But naturally, that is embedded inside of you. You need no permission from nobody. You have a natural license to give birth. You need not go to a human-made university for birth giving. It is naturally embedded inside of you. You have a master in that domain, naturally. So even with us, a whole lot of things are like that, guys. And this is not being cocky or anything like that. Not at all. Have you ever seen a bird that requires a university degree to fly? Have you ever seen a fish that requires a university master's to swim? I submit to you that naturally, who you are and what you are, it's all inside of you. You need no police to come and tell you what to do, how to do it, when to do it. That was never the case. Which is why I submit to you that the management of Africa and African people, the management of its resources, It is embedded within us. The same way breathing is embedded inside of me, inside of you. The same way childbirth, it's embedded inside of a mother. And not just an African mother, any mother. There's something you cannot police, even though we still are attempting to police them today. And for this reason, guys, either you are true to yourselves or you are submitting to that person or that institution, that individual, that organizations of which are seeking to have control over you. You are never meant to be dominated by another human being. You are a sophisticated creature. You are a sophisticated human being, a being that is smarter than any computer on planet Earth. Your depth, it's deeper than the artificial intelligence that there is today. So how dare do you submit under someone who's telling you what to do today? How dare do you submit to someone who doesn't know you and they're telling you this is you? Here I am right now. Who can dare tell me who I am? You may attempt to tell me who I am, but you have no idea who I am, truthfully speaking, and boldly speaking, because that's the truth. Now today, a government here, another government there can come in and be like, you know what, son, this is what we've decided. It's this way or no way. They can come in and force me to do something that I don't want to do, that I desire not to do, because they can, they can come in and gang on me. They can come in and gang on you. But guess what? Naturally, it's impossible. Who I am and what I am, it's naturally inside of me. And I am the only one on this planet like this, the same way you are the only one on planet like that. Why am I saying that? Coming back to my people are destroyed from lack of knowledge because they have rejected it. It is important that you get to know your identity, your true identity, not the identity that it's being given to you by any one of these nations, any one of these masters who wants to take dominion over you. Be true to yourself. If you do not know who you are, find out who you are, because it is deeply hidden within you. Be curious enough that you get to find out. So now you know that since early 90s, I would even dare say as early as 80s, though I was just, I was just a kid. But as early as 90s, I was now a child that I could remember terrorism. I even witnessed terrorism. I've seen terrorists with my two eyes. I see terrorists with my two eyes today. So since in the 90s, now terrorism has become something that has been very, 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 it has been growing. It has become a plague. Now, I also don't want to pretend that everybody understands what a word terrorism is. So I took the liberty to see what some of the dictionaries say about terrorism. And I went first and foremost to our online dictionary. I'm using Google's dictionary. And it said here that terrorism, it's the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians in the pursuit of political aim. Listen, guys, terrorism, it's the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians in the pursuit of political aims. Now, regardless of where you are, especially your sons and daughters, how many unlawful use of violence do you see in your own nation today? And also, it's tricky though. Be careful with this word unlawful use of violence. If they say this is unlawful, that also entails that there is a lawful use of violence and intimidation. That's what this sentence is telling me, especially against civilian. Meaning, today, a government may sanction a lawful use of violence and intimidation against you, civilian, and you can say nothing about it in pursuit of political aims. This is a definition that's readily available online. I did not come up with this. You can go ahead and Google yourselves. So if there is an unlawful use of violence, who is allowed to use violence and intimidation against me? And who is not allowed to do that? What gives you the audacity? What gives you that superiority of coming and use violence and intimidation against me, against my family, my community, my nation? Today, Africa is experiencing all the above, all of this in here. Any nation that you can come up with, it's having this very, all the things that we are reading in this sentence right now. You can see unlawful, even, no, I can't say lawful, because there's no such thing as lawful violence. You did not create me to come and be violent against me. So if you don't want no violence against you, why do you bring violence against me? That's the question. Now, I also went to our dear FBI. Those of you who do not know FBI is the Federal Bureau of Investigation of the United States of America. They have their own definition as well when it comes to the word terrorism. So according to the FBI's, terrorism is the international, they say, let me self-correct. International terrorism is not just terrorism, it's international terrorism, because they have two types of terrorism. So the international terrorism, it's violent criminal acts committed by individuals and or groups who are inspired by or associated with designated foreign terrorist organizations or nations, state-sponsored terrorism. Domestic terrorism, it's violent criminal acts committed by individuals and or groups to further ideological goals stemming from domestic influences such as those of political, religious, social, racial, or environmental nature. Listen to it carefully, guys. And ask yourself, in your nation right now, do you see violent criminal acts committed by some people you know, some organization you know, even institution as big as government that you may know, to further their own ideological goals, influences, either on a political level, religious level, social, racial, or even environmental? Do you see any of that in your own country, in your own nation? This is how the FBI defines terrorism, or that's how they cherry pick you as a part of the terrorism. But one thing that perplexes me is every nation has its own sovereignty. And you, the people, decide how you want your nation to be managed. Tell me why today. Tell me why. The nation of Jordan is discussing internal affairs of East African community. They're discussing terrorism in East African community, in Africa in particular. I want you guys to understand that. How is it that a foreigner is going to come and decide on your own issues and you're not even invited? Also, what is East African community? Because I want you to get to know that, and I had actually asked that they bring me that information forward. So those of you who do not know what East African community is, it's a region just like the United States that is made up by 6 nations, if my memory serves me correct. We have Kenya, we have Kenya, we have Uganda, we have Rwanda, we have Tanzania, we have Burundi, and we have South Sudan. So 5 nations, 5 independent nations, as we are told, they got together the same way that the United States got together, and they are attempting to form like a federation. They are attempting to form one nation where they can enjoy the benefit that each nation has collectively. So now the whole entire East African community, the Six Nations, their business is being discussed or has been discussed in Jordan without them on the table. The same way in 1985. No, my apology, 1895. 5 different continents, South America, North America, Europe, Australia, Asia, they got together in Berlin, in Germany, and they decided to discuss the entire Africa, including it, chopping it up so that they can colonize it, so that they can take charge of it, without a single African on the table, without a single African being asked whether it was acceptable or not. They just decided to do that. What kind of audacity must you have for you to commit something like that? I submit that it's the same type of audacity that was there centuries ago when Africa was being enslaved. If Jordan as a nation cannot be discussed in our living room as Africans, why does it have the audacity to discuss us in its own living room without us being invited there? And again, I have nothing against you Jordanians, none whatsoever. But I'm wondering, if all things are equal, would you be happy? East African community, right now, right at this moment, discussing your issues, your affairs, without you on the table, without you having a saying in it. Would you, the United States, would you France, would you Canada, would you Germany, would you China, would you Russia, and you, the so-called 5Gs or 5 powerful nations around the globe, would you like it if any one of these nations is discussing your business without you being in it? I submit that it's a hell no, and a strong hell no. So why is it that it is being done right now? For me, that shows me a disrespect. It shows me that you think you're more powerful than these nations to the extent that you can discuss its own affairs without them being there. That's a hell of disrespect, guys. And that's why we say, some of you are not going to like what we are saying, but it's true. Because all things equal, if we flip the coin, you would not be liking those terms of conditions. So why do you want us to like and why do you want us to actually accept them in 2022? Now, it gets better, guys. It gets better. This discussion has been called Aqaba Process meetings on counter terrorism, and East Africa is currently on the chopping board right now. So now you're like, okay, Jordan, all the way in the Middle East, is literally looking at terrorism in East Africa. And you wonder, what is the stake of Jordan in East Africa? What is the stake of Jordan or the interest of Jordanians in the sixth nation in East Africa? And get this, East Africa has a leadership team, which is what you guys are seeing in front of us. Currently, the leadership of East African community, it's under the country of Kenya. And this gentleman you see here is President Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru Kenyatta is the current chairman of East African community. Tell me why the Jordanians are going to have business discussing terrorism of East African community without the chairman of East African community. This is the question one that I want to ask you guys. What kind of audacity do you have to go talk about somebody's business without the representative there, the official representation being there? As you can see, we have at least 6 gentlemen here. Actually, my apologies, not 6 gentlemen. We have 5 gentlemen and one woman there. Not 6 gentlemen, my apologies. So we have here President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is the chairman of East African community. And then you have next, right here, President of Burundi, who is His Excellency President Evariste Ndayishimiye. And then you have President of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. And then you have President of South Sudan, and His Excellency Salva Mayardi. And then you have President of Uganda right here, President Museveni Kaguta, Yoweri Museveni. And then you have President of Tanzania right here, Her Excellency President Samia Suluhu. So now I am asking you guys, what kind of disrespect this can be when not only you don't have the chairman, you don't have someone that the chairman says, hey, go on my behalf and listen to what the Jordanians are saying when it comes to terrorism in East African community. First and foremost, how does Jordan know that East African community has terrorism? I mean, they definitely have cable television, they have radio, they can listen, fine. But what gives them the audacity to come in and decide how to manage terrorism in East Africa? Is it an invitation from President Uhuru Kenyatta? Is it an invitation of any one of the East African nations? Minding you, if as a federation, Rwanda cannot just decide to go and say, hey, I want you to come and do this in East Africa. Burundi cannot just decide, hey, we want you to come and do this. South Sudan cannot just decide that we want you to come and do this. Uganda cannot just decide that we want you to come in and check out the terrorism and we need some help. Tanzania cannot just decide that please come and help us out in East Africa and we got problem. Definitely Kenya cannot decide. Everything that East African community is doing, it is collectively doing it. So can you explain to me, has East African community been actually formally invited? And why is it that we didn't see President Kenyatta? However, guys, you'll be shocked to know that we have a few presidents who have gone. We have President of Mozambique, His Excellency Philippe Nyusu, I believe. So Mozambique is not East African country, but Mozambique is in the conversation. You have the Democratic Republic of the Congo. His Excellency Felix Tshisekedi is there. But East African community doesn't have the Democratic Republic of the Congo as one of its members thus far. Even though coming up in a few days, in about 4 days, the Democratic Republic of the Congo will be a member of East African community. Now tell me, why would you send someone who's not a representative, even a member of your collective, to represent you, assuming that you sent him? You also have Rwanda. Rwanda, it's a member of East African community. However, Rwanda is not chairing the East African community. And I have checked the entire web to see if President Uhuru Kenyatta has sent President Kagame on behalf of East African community. And the answer was no. And you wonder, what is this about nations taking business of other nations and deciding their own fate? Now, we also want to put it to you guys that we have things happening in our nations. I came from Rwanda, that's where I come from, and we have problems there that goes as back as 60s, 70s, 80s, but especially in the 90s, you have heard what we call the genocide, the Rwandan genocide. Now, with this Rwandan genocide and everything that's happening, has literally, the genocide was a product of terrorism. Terrorism committed by the Rwandan Patriotic Front, a rebel group led by President Paul Kagame. He wasn't president then, he was just a leader. So now, since the 90s, violence has been committed, criminal actions or acts have been committed by not just individual, organizations, group, government-sponsored entities, both within and outside of Africa. And up to this very day, in Jordan, they're discussing terrorism in East Africa, not only without the East African Authority or representation, but also with some of the questionable people there. And I'm asking you guys, what's wrong with this picture? Is terrorism is it like something that must be policed by the very few, the same way Africa was, it became like a little slave to those who wanted to chop it up back in the 1800s? Is Uhuru Kenyatta incapable of handling terrorism in East African community, that somehow he has to allow the Jordanians to come and sit down and take his responsibility? We got Kenya, we got Uganda, South Sudan, Rwanda, Burundi, and Tanzania. All these 5 nations, are you telling me that they're not capable of sitting down and have a meeting about terrorism in East African community and solve the problem, especially if it is in the best interest of African people? And not only African people, but also the nations, the East African community nations and citizens. Do you have to go miles and miles away from somebody else's nation to come and tell you how it's going to go down? What's wrong with that picture, guys? Rien ne va pas. That's a French word that something is going on. So, from what we've been gathering online, you notice all these presidents, except President Kagame. And so we are told, because there's a whole other discussion of what's happening with President Kagame also that I do not want to get in, right at this very moment. So Kagame went there, but he's not representing the East African community. And again, with the things happening around President Kagame, all of which you know, by the way, it's no secret. Kagame hasn't been in public's eye for about 2 years. Leadership-wise, Rwanda has not had any decision from President Kagame for 2 years, especially during that time frame of COVID. And all of a sudden, we stopped seeing photoshopped videos, movies coming around. He was only found on the internet, but was never physically seen. It got to the point, it got worse. They started talking about that he was not even around, that he may have been sick. That some of the Kagame wannabes were actually wearing a mask to speak on his behalf. Guys, things that has been taught for so many. Kagame was missing in many meetings where East African community members were. We're talking about other presidents. Up to this very moment, we have not witnessed a meeting of Uhuru Kenyatta, Evariste Ndayishimiye, the South Sudanese, His Excellency South Sudanese Salva, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, and Samia Suluhu, all together. Physically, we're not talking about online. They have had meetings online. They've talked together. But because of the speculations of the ways about President Kagame, we have yet to have a physical meeting. So there is already speculations of all kinds of things happening as to what happened to President Kagame. And then you have President Kagame who pops up in different places, but does not pop up in front of the Rwandese people, does not pop up in front of the Kenyan people, does not pop up in front of the Burundian people, does not pop up in front of the South Sudanese people, does not pop up in front of the Ugandans or Ugandese people, does not pop up in front of the Tanzanian people. So how is it that he is the one who is actually sent? I don't know whether he's representing the interest of East African community, but he sure is representing the interest of President Kagame. So where we have heard Samia Suluhu isn't there, but we know that the Prime Minister is there. The Tanzanian Prime Minister is there. So now if Tanzanian Prime Minister was there, His Excellency Kassim Majaliwa. Is he there representing East African community, or is he there representing the interests of Tanzania unofficially? Even if it's officially, but that doesn't mean that it's East African, that it is East African community. How are you going to discuss terrorism and then you put it in the umbrella of the East African community? However, the East African community member and representatives aren't there. Guys, I want you guys to think about it and ask yourselves those questions. But not only that, you notice that they have so many people who could have gone. So many people. I mean, it's a whole entire leadership of people who are doing a whole lot of different things. Go to their website. I'm pulling this straight from the website. It's not hidden. One people, one destiny. But it doesn't seem like we are one people in this meeting about the terrorism on Africa, and then specifically in East African community. So now I get to ask you people, what's wrong with this picture? What is wrong with this picture? Those of you. You got President Kagame, and so we are told, President of Mozambique, and the King of Jordan meeting to decide and to talk about the East African issue. And you haven't seen even an ambassador of East African community. But you also have other nations though. You have other nations appearing there. Many nations appearing there. You have the United States there, and they also have their own representatives there. You have the European nations there. You have the Latin American representatives there. You have even the Asians representatives there. We're talking about military representatives and some of the government representatives. And you wonder, is this real? A meeting on terrorism for Africa and East African communities specifically, or this is another meeting that has nothing to do with East African community? Guys, go online and Google this out. Go online and check it out, because some of the things that we talk about sometimes, you may actually think that we are exaggerating, because it is so absurd when you see how it's positioned, when you see how it's been, it has been crafted. You wonder, like, who actually did this? Who put together this kind of meeting, to the extent that people want, like, okay, so why are you being discussed but you are not on the table? Hey, this goes back as far as 1800s, when Africa was officially sliced into small pieces. There is a professor who is one of my favorite, Lumumba. He's a Kenyan professor, law professor. There was a discussion way back when they depicted Africa as being on a chopping board, or as being on a table, on a dinner table, when the rest of the when the rest of the world was just having a bite at it. He explicitly explains it so beautifully. Then when you think about it, when you realize what's happening, you wonder, like, okay, so we no longer have shackles physically showing, but we have modern shackles now, mentally captivating each and every one is his attention, each and every one of us, to the extent you cannot do nothing about it. How generous of King Abdullah, sorry. He's the King of Jordan. How benevolent of him it is to want to solve terrorism in Africa, terrorism in East Africa. Yet he has yet to invite the East African representatives. I mean, think about that. There is a proverb in Africa where they say that anybody who pities a child than the mother who has bore their child wants to actually harm their child. So in whose interest is all these things happening in Jordan? By the way, this is not something that just started. It's been going on since 2015. for your information. Again, if you go online and you Google or you search Aqaba Process meeting, this is a very, very serious meeting, if you would, that talks about terrorism and how to counter terrorism all over. We talk about enhancing the security of some nations, military coordination and cooperation, and information sharing and gathering, and also policing other nations. We have today something they call Africon, African Command Center. It's a United States division, or it's one of the umbrella, it's one of the institution of the United States that actually polices Africa. If you go on the Africon website, they are very huge in fighting terrorism. Again, guys, again, I want to ask you, if you are being discussed, you yourself are not interested in solving your own problem, what's wrong with you? Do you think your neighbor is going to come and solve your problem, your situation, because they like you or there's an interest that they have in it, first and foremost? If you're not wise enough to want to have anything to do with a situation that's dire in your own nation, and someone else from far away comes in and be like, you know what, we like you so much, we want to take care of this problem, we want to take care of this for you. What's wrong with that picture, guys? Such is what's been happening, and it still is happening right now in Africa. So, I've been wondering and wondering, how is it that this meeting President Uhuru misses? You know what President Uhuru was? He was meeting Microsoft representatives. Again, check it up on the internet. So Uhuru would rather have a meeting with Microsoft, something that has a direct interest of Kenya and the Kenyan people, than flying to Jordan to have some sort of terrorism meeting for the entire East African community. Just think about that picture, guys. That's the message that I can actually take away with. However, is that really what's going on? What's going down? So, again, because of those issues happening, if six heads of state can now meet and talk about the issue that affects each and every one of those nations, do you think that those head of states actually are looking at the very best interests of their own people, or something else is happening? And I submit to you guys that there's no way that you're going to have a fire in your own house and wait for help to come miles away to quench that fire. There's nowhere you are going to burn your whole entire establishment and just be ignorant about it and do nothing about it. So how can you dare tell me that the terrorism in East Africa is not something that is of importance to the African people, to the East African community themselves? How can you tell me that His Excellency Burundian President Evariste would not dare go in a place where he's seeking the very best interest of the Burundians? How can you tell me that His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta will not go in a place with the very best interest of the Kenyan people? How can you tell me that His Excellency the South Sudanese President Mayardi cannot go somewhere to seek out the very best interest of the Sudanese people? How can you tell me the President of Tanzania, Her Excellency Samia Suluhu, will now go somewhere to seek after the very best interest of the Tanzanian people? Guys, it's impossible. Which is why I say wake up and just find out what's going on, guys. It's all in front of you. And that's why I started saying that our people are destroyed from lack of knowledge, because we have rejected knowledge. The knowledge is there, the information is there, but are you sober enough to actually digest the information, to seek out the information, to digest it, and let it be very useful for you and for you own, and very useful to you, to your people, to your nations? Everything is all up in the open, guys. But how many of you are actually seeking the information and are you in using that information for the best interest, or for the interest of your own people, and specifically the East African people, and then the African people? And then we're gonna say, oh, the colonizers are really taking advantage of us. Come on, we are rejecting to do what we have to do as a people. We are not interested in resolving our own issue, and therefore other nations come in, like Jordan, like the United States, like the United Kingdoms, like France, like China, like Russia. They come in and they assess the situation, and then they strike deals with us. Deals in their own best interest, because they've taken the time to assess what's going on, and they've taken the time to draft some agreements that are going to have the very best interest of their own people. First and foremost, remember, it is us who are going to draw to figure out what is your interest, not these other nations. So can we fault them for doing their own due diligence on behalf of their own nations, on behalf of their own citizens? And I will say, hell no. I personally cannot fault any of them. They're doing exactly what they have to be doing on behalf of their own people. Hate it or like it, it is what it is. So today I cannot hate, because I've realized that what we are failing to do as Africans, what we are failing to do as East Africans, it's being done by those other nations. And definitely not even behind your backs. It's being done in front of your face. So what's wrong with you? Why can't you not do nothing? Why can you not seek after the interest of your own people? It comes down to that thing we keep on saying, slavery. You are slaves right now, even though you have Gucci, you have a beautiful suit on. You have absolutely corrupted your own minds. You are led by somebody else. You are dancing to the tune of someone else, to another government, another organization. And you claim to be free. You claim to be independent. It is so sad, guys. It is so sad. Making matters worse, all this information is out there. And then we are going in turn to bicker amongst ourselves. We are going to be fighting amongst ourselves. And oftentimes not even knowing why we are fighting. Guys, this is so... It's disgrace. It's a disgrace to our ancestors, guys. Remember, I barely talked about terrorism. I barely talked about the root cause of terrorism. I barely talked about the sponsors of terrorists and terrorism activities. I did not touch any of it. I only just I literally picked up the hood just a little bit. Just a little bit. I just literally just picked up the hood. And all this stuff is there. What happens if you actually do your own due diligence and see what's happening today? Will you claim to be free when you're not willing to do what freedom requires? Will you claim to be independent when you cannot think independently? Will you claim to be a sovereign nation when another nation is running you, is telling you what to do, how to do it, when to do it? Who are you killing? Nobody. Certainly not us. But the joke is on us, because you are forcing us to submit under you. And you are not representing the interest of us, the people. How do we reconcile those differences, guys? How do we reconcile those differences and ensure that it's not the case? I love every nation that is doing its very best on behalf of its own people, because that's a mandate of nations, to work on behalf of the people, of its people. So what's wrong with East African communities right now? When was the last time you've seen President Yoweri Museveni and President Kagame in one room? When was the last time you've seen President Kagame, President Yoweri Museveni, and Uhuru Kenyatta in one room? When was the last time you've seen that? Do you wonder why you don't see that? The answers are there, guys. There's nothing new under the sun, they say. There's also nothing new under East African community. It's a community on papers, but it hasn't been a full community in reality. Because we have, how can I put it? We have wolves dressed in sheep's suit. We have people there pretending to work together when they're not working together. We have nations pretending to work together when they're not working together. You have representatives of nations looking after the interest of other external nations except the East African nations and their own respective nations. So how can you work together when the interest you're seeking, it's not uniform? It's not what you claim to be seeking collectively. That is why you young people, we have so much to do. You cannot just be a bystander while this is all happening. Because the more you become a bystander, Jordan, the United States, the United Kingdoms, Russia, China, any one of the nations that is strong enough to come and tell you what to do, they will always come and tell you what to do. Yet, you get around in turn and come and say you are a sovereign nation. Come on, wake up and smell the coffee. This is not funny. This is not a representation of us, the people. You're turning us into slaves and stupid people. You're turning us into people who have no conscience, who do not think. What's the point of having these 500 billion cells in your brain and you're not using any of it? What's the point of pretending to be friends when you're not friends? What's the point of pretending to be seeking out the interest of the collective when the collective is not your destination? Guys, judgment is upon us. Whatever we're doing or fail to do is going to be on a chopping board very soon, as we are being asked to account for everything that we are doing or we have been doing. I wish I can dive right in it, but I cannot, because we don't have the time nor the resources actually to show you everything we want to show you. But one thing for sure, right now as we speak, the president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, for the past 2 years has not met Rwandese people in places like a stadium, for example. He went to Senegal for a commemoration of a new stadium, for an opening of a new stadium. Literally. He has not done that in Rwanda, in front of the masses. However, though, may the truth be told as well, we have had events where specific people are pre-scrutinized to go in those stadiums. One in particular, the Kigali Arena, where you are told not to have a camera, not to take any pictures, not to do this and that and that. They basically bring you in and then they say, oh, the president is there, he's meeting the people. Again, guys, I want to be very transparent. I live in the United States. I've never seen anywhere where President Joe Biden goes and then they lock down the entire place unless it's an emergency or something that is happening. If it's a public arena, if it's a town hall meeting, they do not cherry pick who attends, who does not attend. You can literally Google right now and find out the ways about of President Biden. Everything he does is up in the open. Not our President Kagame. Which is why there is this whole suspicion. That's why he hasn't made a lot of these people, a lot of these other leaders that you are seeing here. He has not met President of Burundi, who is our neighbor. He has not met President of Uganda, who is our neighbor, and they used to be besties. So if these leaders themselves aren't meeting, they cannot meet, will you actually believe that they are going to be seeking the best interests of our own people? Please. If they're not in sync, how can you even ask them to sync on behalf of you, the people? It will be irresponsible, guys. I'm not expecting that from any of them. Now, figure out what kind of interest are they seeking. Is it the interest of you, the people, or different type of interest? Guys, the issues we have are not going to go away by themselves. Adia Queen is saying here that she doesn't even understand what do those so-called African leaders who compare themselves independent countries are going to study their own problems outside of. That's how the selling of our land happens. It's beyond what you can actually. I've been really trying to use the correct words so we don't get booted off the networks. But this is so infuriating, guys. This is very infuriating. President Uhuru Kenyatta is governing his own nation, meeting stakeholders to bring more goodies for his nation, Kenya. President Evariste Ndayishimiye is busy governing his own nation. You can see him doing so many things, including recently go on Twitter. I know this is besides the point, but go check him out in the middle of a farm. Like literally working with the people side by side. He goes to the extent of taking some what do you call it? His carrying stuff. I mean, a president, guys, a president carrying stuff on his back along with his wife, First Lady. I mean, these guys, he got swags than the swags I have ever seen. The most humble president in 2022 right now that I see in East African community. I would dare even say the whole entire Africa. Evariste, he's working for the people. Now, someone that close to the people, why won't you not see him with the Rwandese people, with the rest of these nations? Something is up. And that something is what's becoming a problem in the whole East African community. And you, the people, both East Africans, even Africans, and outside of Africans, we share the blame because we see evil happening and we're now calling it out for what it is. We see our business being managed by somebody else, by other nations, and we do nothing about it. I may be speaking in lingo, I may be speaking in tongues for those of you who may not necessarily decipher what I'm alluding to, but I'm saying here that East African community is not managing its own affairs. Africa is not managing its own affairs. You have nations outside of Africa literally fighting with Africa. The so-called Cold Wars. The Cold Wars was when the United States and Russia were fighting politically and then eventually got to fight physically. These so-called powerful nations are literally ganging on Africa. They are literally ganging on East Africa. They are literally ganging on your own respective nations, telling you what to do, the same way they've decided to do, the same way they decided to do away, to control you, to manage you back in 1895. And they are still doing it today. And we have the audacity to call ourselves sovereign nations. I mean, seriously, guys. Hate it or not, it is what's happening today. And as the people, until you can wisen up, you can boldly smell it and see what's happening, call it for what it is. Do not pretend. It is going to be a challenge to change the course that they have predetermined for you. I just want to go back and ask you, President of Mozambique, President of Rwanda, and Tshisekedi, what do they have in common right now? That's the homework that I'm going to give you guys. Rwanda, Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Mozambique, what do they have in common right now? That's one of the questions that I'm going to leave with you. I'll give you a hint. Go back about 5-6 months ago and see what's happening in Mozambique. That's a cheat sheet right there. And then turn around and come to East Africa. What is the relationship of East Africa and Mozambique? I already told you the relationship of East Africa and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It's going to become a full-fledged member this coming March 29th. So at least them, they can say, hey, we are already yours. We're working with you. We are buddies in arms and everything else. And so we are told. But what about the rest of these European nations, the United States? These are the nations in these meetings. What do you think they're discussing when East African chairman is not there? When none of the East African communities ambassadors is present? I submit to you that it may be just like what it was back in 1895 when the Berlin Conference was discussing Africa without any African members, leaders present. And they got to do what they had planned to do. And up to this day, we are still feeling the remnant of it. So my question to you, my parting words with you are going to be, my question, are you going to be bystander, you young people, you brothers and sisters, Africans? Are you going to be bystanders? I take no excuse, literally. I am so sick and tired of hearing, you see, politically we gotta do this, data. Who cares about politically you gotta do this? When lives are perishing, you're thinking about politically. Why? Because those are political interests, not people's interests. Do not approach this situation politically. Because if you're not in charge politically, how dare are you going to say, you see, politically, this is what's going to happen? Socially, this and that. You're not in charge. Can you take charge first and foremost? Then you can say, this is what's going to go down. Guys, it is, I feel like it's actually treason. I believe that it's treason for what's happening on the continent level. It's treason. And then what's happening with our respective nations. Treason up in the open. But now we've been given the Kool-Aid. Now we have been actually, we literally have been closed, mind closed that you cannot even think today. For these past 2 years, it's been COVID. Everything that's happening in the name of COVID, stay home. In the name of COVID, do not argue. This is a very sensitive issue. In the name of COVID, you cannot meet physically. In the name of COVID, please sign this for the collective efforts of everybody, for the benefit of the entire world. In the name of COVID, tara, 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 tara. Until when are you going to see that you're drinking the Kool-Aid that doesn't have your sugar? Seriously speaking, guys, we are up for a huge fight that other nations have prepared for 200 plus years, and you are just arriving on the scene using the weapon you have been given by that person, that institution, that nation that's going to use or fight against you. So that nation is supplying the weapon to you, and it's going to attack you. Can you see the irony? Can you see how this situation is so laughable? That nation is controlling you, and then it's actually in turn providing you the means to protect yourself. Are you killing me? Guys, this setup is so wrong. This is not sovereignty. We are not sovereign nations. I was going to say that we are puppets, but even at least a puppet knows it's a puppet. We're more like slaves. We're born with invisible borders. And this is not okay in 2020 and beyond. So thanks, but no thanks to those of you who want to come and help us out, but you don't want our own input. Thanks, but no thanks. Respectfully, thanks, but no thanks to the Jordanians. Until you learn how to be respectful to East African community, I do not believe that you are working in the best interest of the East African communities. And I am being told that my time's up. So I was going to say something, but I'm just going to cut my tongue from there and just hold it for the next time around. I want to ask that you send us some feedback with this topic. And I urge you to go online and actually scrutinize what we have said. Check out every information that we have shared with you. And I get to ask you, what is your role in it? What are you going to do? Those of you who want to leave us some feedback, shoot us an email at info@afreedominion.com. You can call us. If you go on our website, you'll find our information, even social media handlers. We do not hide from nobody, guys. But I want you guys, I am pleading with you guys to wake up and smell the coffee. And until next time, I am Freeman Singirankabo here at Afree Dominion. I want to wish each and every one of you guys a super fantastic Friday. Have a beautiful weekend. And until we see you guys next week on Monday, God bless.